I get it, you scroll through endless listings, see a sleek 8TB drive that promises go big, do more, and you start picturing all the games, mods, video projects, and massive photo libraries you could finally stash in one place. Then you remember the last time a big storage upgrade turned out to be a disappointment, a slow-booting laptop, a drive that filled up faster than expected, or a price tag that ate up your entire budget for a marginal performance bump. That hesitation is real, and it's why I'm digging into the Samsung 870 QVO 8TB SATA SSD today. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's talk about what the 870 QVO actually does for a typical gaming PC or a creator's workstation. This is a 2.5-inch SATA drive, not an NVMe card, so you're not looking at the blistering read-write numbers you'd get from a PCIe 4.0 model. What you are getting is a massive amount of space wrapped in Samsung's VNAND QLC technology, which trades a little bit of endurance for density. In plain English, you can dump a huge library of AAA titles, 4K video footage, and Photoshop files onto it without constantly juggling external drives, but you won't be shaving milliseconds off load times the way a high-end NVMe would. If you're the type of gamer who keeps a handful of titles installed at any given time and relies on a separate SSD for your OS and most played games, the QVO can serve as a massive archive drive. I've seen creators who keep their current project on a fast NVMe, then move older projects to the QVO to free up the high-speed tier. That workflow works because the QVO's sequential read speeds hover around the upper limits of SATA, about 560 MBs, and its sequential writes are roughly 530 megabytes per second. Those numbers are more than enough for loading large game worlds or copying raw video files, but they're not going to make a 60 frames per second texture swap feel instant. One practical strength that shows up in everyday use is the drive's power efficiency. Samsung's firmware includes a TurboWrite cache that uses a portion of the NAND as a faster SLC buffer. When you're copying a few gigabytes of footage, you'll notice the drive staying cool and not drawing much more power than a typical 2.5-inch HDD. That matters if you're running a desktop with a modest 450-watt PSU or a thin laptop where heat is already a concern. In my own setup, the QVO ran at under 5 watts under load, which is basically negligible compared to the GPU's draw. Now for the trade-offs. QLC NAND has a lower program erase (PE) cycle rating than the TLC or MLC chips you find in Samsung's 860 EVO or 980 PRO lines. The spec sheet lists a total bytes written (TBW) of roughly 2,880 terabytes for the 8TB model, which sounds huge, but if you're the kind of user who renders 8K video every night or constantly rewrites large game files, you could approach that limit faster than you think. Samsung does offer a 5-year warranty, but the real-world impact shows up as slower write performance once the SLC cache is exhausted. In practical terms, if you copy a 200 GB batch of raw footage all at once, the first 3040 GB will zip through, then the speed will settle into the mid-400 MBs range. It's still usable, but you'll feel the lag compared to a pure TLC drive. Who should consider buying this? If you're a gamer with a modest budget who needs a massive library drive to keep all your titles, or a content creator who wants a cold storage tier for finished projects, the 870 QVO hits a sweet spot. It's also a good fit for office PCs that need to store large datasets, like engineering simulations or medical imaging files, where the sheer capacity outweighs the need for ultra-fast random access. On the flip side, if you're building a high-end rig where every millisecond counts, think competitive esports, real-time ray tracing, or a workstation that does heavy 3D rendering on the fly, skip the QVO and go for an NVMe PCIe 4.0 SSD. You'll pay more per gigabyte, but the performance delta will be noticeable in load screens and file transfers. Another hidden consideration is the physical space. The 2.5-inch form factor is universal, but you still need a SATA data cable and a power connector. Many modern mid-tower cases have dedicated 2.5-inch mounting points, but some compact builds only have room for an M.2 module. If you're planning a mini ITX case, you'll have to sacrifice a SATA port or find an adapter, which adds clutter. In larger towers, the drive slots in without issue, and the included mounting bracket makes installation a breeze. Just snap it onto a 2.5-inch tray and slide it into a SATA bay. A point that often goes unnoticed is the sustainable claim Samsung makes. The QVO uses a denser NAND layout, which means fewer silicon wafers per terabyte of storage produced. For environmentally conscious buyers, that's a subtle but real benefit. It doesn't